I often talk with young people about career choices and the planning that they do. And as an attorney, when I graduated from law school, honestly, I had no idea that I would be involved with Parks and Recreation. There was a job opening with the Illinois Association of Park Districts for a legislative advocate. And so I applied, and the rest is really history. It has been a glorious career, and I never would have anticipated that I would be put in contact with people in the park and recreation field that are just some of the most dynamic, nimble, visionary people in the state of Illinois, certainly, and throughout the nation. One of the things I've seen is that that's changed over time, and sports management has been kind of a thing that young people want to get into because they think it'll be fun and sexy, and then they end up selling tickets to Bulls games. What I would encourage is the career in public parks and recreation is a wonderful career with a lot of opportunities for growth, both personally and professionally. And that's something that organizationally, I think all of us need to work on to make sure that universities are communicating that as well. The future of parks and recreation, I think now we're really focusing on equity and making sure that everybody has access to recreational opportunities in parks and open space. It's clear from the pandemic that the public generally values parks and recreation and the opportunities they bring higher than they ever have. And so the future for all of us that are involved in parks and recreation is to grow that, to make sure that we have access to open space that's a 10-minute walk away from somebody's home, that we make sure we have safe places for people to go. Because I think if people reflect back on what influenced them, did they have a coach that was particularly influential? I think you'll almost find that everybody has a story about that there was somebody that was involved with them on a recreation level that inspired them to become involved and grow. I know that in Illinois, we really track the involvement of young people because parks and recreation many times is their very first job. And that's a wonderful opportunity. And when we went back to those people that we had interviewed and said, what did that job really mean to you? They said, I learned more at that job than I did in college. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to, show up, be on time, be present. And so the kinds of life skills that you learn in your first job in public parks and recreation many times is something that people carry through their entire life. And so that's very exciting. I had an opportunity to coach baseball for 14 years. And so all those kids that have gone through that program have, grown, and now they're adults. And so sometimes you see them in the community. I was, buying a new phone, and at the AT&T place, there was a young man that said, "Oh, Coach Murphy, how are you?" And so those are the kinds of things. I think parks have such meaning, and to be able to be in the outdoors and in nature is just revitalizing for people. And so parks are a salient part, I think, of everybody's experience. And it's our goal as park and recreation professionals to make sure we encourage that because it does make a difference in as people get older as to what they then pass on to their children and to others. As an advocate for parks and recreation, one of the things that park districts or municipal parks and recreation are always seeking is funding. It seems like when you're looking at city services, police, fire, roads, parks and recreation falls down on the scale. And in Illinois in 1989, we were able to create a open space lands acquisition and development fund. And we were able to work with members of the Illinois General Assembly to have a portion of the real estate transfer tax be set aside and then matched locally, much in the way that the Land and Water Conservation Fund is. And so the interesting thing about that is that it started generating 14, 15, now it generates $60 million a year. We know that that's matched locally by park agencies at almost a 2-to-1 basis. So that $60 million is, $150 million as an investment into the outdoor recreational infrastructure of the state of Illinois. And that program has now resulted in more than $1.5 billion since 1989 being invested into parks and recreation, outdoor parks and recreation in the state of Illinois. And I think the message is that a lot of times people want to do the big thing. But sometimes if you have a vision and see how I can make it happen, but incrementally, year after year after year, you can grow something that turns out to be very exciting. And that investment never would have happened unless we worked with leadership in both the Illinois House and Senate to have that little set-aside take place. So incrementally, it's made a tremendous difference in parks and recreation in my state. Well, I have a lot of hopes for the future of public parks and recreation. One of the hopes is that we continue to put a priority on acquiring open space because they're not making it anymore. Open space is critically important. And once a park and recreation agency acquires open space, they need to hang on to it. And the Chicago park system is a great example of that they were able to protect, the lakeshore from all the kinds of things that people wanted to put on the lakeshore. When you think about how did open space come about, it really was because of cities were, densely populated. Pollution was everywhere, and they were trying to give people an outlet for fresh air and things of that nature. And so, I guess my vision for parks and recreation in the future would be that we continue to acquire open space and that we don't give it back for any purpose other than for the public enjoyment. I think as our population continues to grow, that'll be a more salient thing, and I think people make decisions about where they want to locate and bring their families based on the quality of the public park and recreation system. Schools is certainly counts, but I think now public parks and recreation is as much of a factor because they want to have opportunities for their children, not just during the school day, but what else is available for my children to do. And so I see that becoming even more prevalent as public parks and recreation continues to evolve and change and continue to be nimble. I think the pandemic was a real test of park professionals' ability to pivot, and boy, did they ever. And there are tremendous stories about what park and recreation agencies did to help people out during those times when they really were afraid to get together with other people. But because you have this basic understanding of public good and how to pivot, I think you're always going to be successful because what you're looking at is how can I deliver these wonderful services to my community? And I think park professionals have done a fantastic job of that, and I know they'll continue to do that into the future.